I want to start with everyone raising the hand who is direct drilling or has been trying direct drilling sometime in some field or whatever. Quite a few, very, very interesting, good. The less we do, the more complicated it gets, because we need to look at the different functions and so on. And I thought this speech a little bit to look at challenges, what we meet, and how to get around those, what we can do to mitigate the risks and to lower the risk there for our yield deficit. And one thing that we have seen over time is that many persons have started with the no-till with a cost focus and to really seek reduce cost, and missed a little bit the system, because a drill is only part of a much bigger system here, where we also move into oh, sorry about that. Where we also move into so to say agronomy. We need to know soil science. It's so much bigger than this drill only, so to say. And if we miss that, there's a big potential that will fail and that will cost us yield, and that's quite important to understand. So you need to have a higher level of interest when you do the no-till, so to say. So stop looking at the machine as such, but looking at your soils, because your soils is what will produce, so to say, for you. So that's important to keep in mind. And there's always a discussion about tine or disc cultures and so on, and you can pretty much look at these by changing the advantages of one of them to the disadvantage of the other, and so on, looking crosswise. Both systems have benefits and negative aspects to them. So there is nothing right or wrong, but you need to be aware of the system that you choose and why you choose it, and the benefit of that system, so to say, to go along and to reduce the risk as much as possible in that system that you choose. And looking a little bit at the biggest challenges that we see when we're looking into no-till, that's been a few ones that have been mentioned very, very much by many farmers practicing no-till. Transition time. That's where your soil is going over into no-till state, so to say. Residues, we all know that's a huge thing to work with. Seed placement, seed emergence, keep that going. Different soil conditions, we all have variations on the farm. We'll have year variations as well. Weeds and pests, huge theme if we don't do it the right way here. Nutrients, that's also an interesting part of no-till, how to work with that in a good way, how they work together with the soil, with the seed and everything in our new system. And of course we have some years that are really wet, and how to face those, so to say. So that's a little bit the split up of the speech, how to do each of these challenges. And we're starting with the transition, and and every soil, when you're moving into no-till, it takes a while until it adapts to the new, so to say, equilibrium of the soil, how to work that in a good way. So the heavier our soils are, usually the quicker it goes. So we need to, so to say, build up the new microorganism, fauna and everything. We need to build up organic matter in the soil in a different way than it was before. So that takes a while. And this is a time where you can have yield instability. There's a risk for that. So it's good to be aware of. You can reduce this risk by when you are going into a no-till, that you're reducing your depth stepwise, because then you also adapt your soil stepwise to this. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. You can also look at the crops before you go into min-till, that you have deep rooting crops that produces a lot of root mass. That can also help. You can work with cover crops, certainly, to maintain this good structure and so on. So there are many things we can do. But we should also be aware that there are soils, the lighter soils especially, the sandier soils, that takes a long time to get over into the new state of the soil. So as you can see here, over 10 years in some really sandy soils, because that takes a long time to build up organic matter there. So just to be aware that it's not always things will happen quick like that, that you can not expect to have all the results right away. And there are soils also that are more problematic, and that's if you have very sandy soils. Like I say, you saw the partly sandy, you can take up to 10 years. Very sandy soils are more problematic than other soils to move into no-till. So where you can expect a little bit more problems. High organic content, if you have a soil like that, that's more difficult as well. And we see wet soils where the earthworms will not be able to develop as much. So those soil types will be more challenging. We should be aware of that. And we should also look a little bit at varieties, what you use there. Winter crops, usually not a big problem. And but look, when you are using wider row distances, that you have varieties that compensate with strong tillering, that you have a good ear development and so on, so that you think about these things here as well. And also that when you look at the trials and everything, those trials are made in conventional systems, so you may not have the same strength of a variety in a no-till system as you do in a variety trial that you get offered from seed companies and so on. So be aware that there may be differences here. So that's good to keep in mind also. And to reduce the risk, so to say, like I said, work stepwise upwards. That's always a good thing. And cover crops, you can, alfalfa is a good starting crop, so to say, where you can have a really good rooting. You go out really nice with that. Red clover, same thing here. Learn on a smaller scale. Speak to people who are already active. You saw some hands being raised here. These guys have collected experience already. The closer they are to you, the better. Where you have the same climate zone, same soil type and everything, try to learn. It's a very important part. I just spoke to Martin here before. They have Facebook groups speaking about how to do the best way, exchanging experiences, speaking about challenges and everything. Start those things. Have WhatsApp groups. Just communicate, because this is not a thing that you can read right in a school book or so. So you need to have information exchange here. That's really, really important. Big thing is residues. So the less we do, the more residues we have. In the early days of no-till, for example, Britain and so on, they started also burning. That was really great because they got a very, very easy way to drill. You had a clean seed bed and everything. You could go, but you lost the carbon and nitrogen basically. So this was not a way to go, so to say. But we are up here, and that means we challenge. We have a lot of challenges with the residues. And when you combine, try to keep the stubble as short as possible. Important issue. And if you're going into no-till, you should go at an angle against the previous crop so that you don't hit one row, for example, with another row completely. That's not, it will not be a good emergence. When you are in no-till, you can start to, and you have a wider row distance, you can go between the rows drilling. So that's also a possibility. But it is always challenging when you're going from a very narrow row distance to a wider one and to get a good result there. Try to avoid, whenever you're combining, that you get any heaps in the field, because those things, they are always difficult to repair. It's difficult when you have a cultivator, when you're plowing and everything, but it's, of course, when you have no tillage at all, it gets even worse. So at all costs, try to avoid any of these because this will cause you problems later. It gets uneven. Residues remain with us in a negative way for the yield. And wider combines often produce more problems, and the combine sizes will not go down. As far as we can see, they are working on even bigger ones as what we see today. So this problem will increase. This photo is from a customer in Germany. Some of you met him, Mr. Lassen, who was here also a few years ago. But here you can clearly see that the combine does not distribute perfect. So we need to take that in with us. And except for the width, it's also weight, it's your variations in the field, it's the time of the day when you're combining. Things change, so the conditions are not always the same, and that makes it problematic to manage the residue distribution with the combine. And that's a challenge for us in the whole business. You can test this by raking together some after your combine, or you just take one arm width and gather like this. So that's possible, and then you get a good understanding of how your combine is working there, basically. We saw some Australians, they took the matter in their own hands and solved the problems technologically by leaving all the straw behind the combine and then picking it up and chopping it and distributing it on 18 meter wide like this. So looking a little bit almost like the lime spreaders you can see here. So that's there is a problem, and many farmers are thinking about how to face this in a good way. And here, one thing I would like to give with you here, what happens when we combine, and it's everywhere basically, we start at the same spot in the field every year. And here we're building up organic matter, year 1, year 2, year 3. So that's a big challenge there, because the organic matter will land in the same spot all the time. But what you can do is to, every second year, you change your combine 1/2 width. It's not as optimal, certainly, but you will get your straw distributed very even due to that. So that's a very practical thing you can do to face this problem. And that's not only for no-tillers, so all of you doing regular tillage as well. This is helping you quite a bit to improve your distribution. So think about that, a very take-home message. Good way to solve this. Sharpen your knives. Really boring, but do it frequent. That gets your chopping going good as well. And with the chopping, we can steer all these different things here, the insulation effect, the breakdown speed, and so on. So, and the warm-up effect of the soil. So depending on how long we leave our chops, we can steer these different things here. So depending on where you are and so on, there may be different things that you're wishing for to happen, and therefore you can may want to vary this a little bit. And we should be aware that where the combine has left the straw, that's basically, it's quite hard to move it away from there. It gets even more difficult when you have been driving on the straw, so putting it down. So that's, therefore, the distribution from the combine is very important topic, because afterwards it's difficult to repair it, basically. So all the passes, if you do tillage or whatever, you lose your efficiency quite quick there. And if you're straw harrowing, it could be a tip also, sometimes you want to have a lot of axles here. You want to go in the same direction if you go more than once. So sometimes people are driving crosswise. Don't drive crosswise. You will only bring this direction and then bring it back the other direction again. So one direction. That's good to keep in mind. And this is also, if you're cultivating as well, that's good to keep in mind as well, to think about trying to put the distributional direction the same way. So it sounds easy, it's not that easy always in the everyday farming, but keep that in mind, that if we want to distribute residues, that's a way to think anyway. And sometimes the world is not just black and white, and you will see that with when you've been working a while in one system, you start to see, okay, I may need to do this or this here that is not in the original perfect system. But the world is not perfect. We have difficult years. We have issues with pests like slugs or whatever. And then we can see if we can do something to reduce the risks. Ultra-shell tillage is one thing that is actually can be interesting in no-till. So, and the thing is here, we are working very, very shallow, so we maintain the structure, which is a good thing, and the earthworms are not affected either, since we're working so shallow. So this is, yeah, it's a compromise, but it's a little compromise. You increase warming, you get fine tilth, so you get a better seeding results afterwards as well. Residue handling is getting easier because you get the breakdown going, and you can also have a stale seedbed. So there are many benefits by doing a little. So keep in mind, you have to look at your yield, and it's not about this perfect school book that you have to always do exactly like this. See as little as possible, as much as necessary always. And there are, for the ultra-shell tillage, you can choose the cross-cutter disc here, and they have either you can have the normal cross-cutter disc that is full, so to say, or you have one cross-cutter disc aggressive where there's cutouts. And the cutouts gives you a little bit less material to the ground, which means that the penetration in the ground will be better. So we have a better penetration for the same weight here. So if you have a hard ground or whatever, it will be easier to penetrate with the crosscut disc aggressive. These here are for Carrier XL, the bigger ones. And there is also now the 3 rows of crosscut disc available. So to increase the aggressiveness further, so there's one more row in here. And what is the benefit of that? So we basically increase the aggressivity with 50%. So the cross-cutter disc is fairly wide. It's pressed very wide, 11.5 centimeters. And it's angled a little bit, so it cuts roughly 13.5 centimeters when you're having it in the soil. When we increase the overlap here, we can we do more, basically. We are more intensive. We can actually go a little more shallow and get the same result by doing that. So it's quite a big thing, and I think it makes it interesting for this type of use with the direct drilling, that it can be, we do even more, but with even less depth, so to say. And if we work with the 2 rows of cross-cutter disc, we can also combine it with different front tools, straw distribution, or also intensiveness with the cross-cutter knife in the front like that. So that's a possibility. And this can help us to avoid, if you have a disc drill, for example, can help us to avoid problems with hairpinning, or when we have that we will not get a good closing of the seed slot, where we can have an opening of the seed slot afterwards. Those are all things with lacking of fine tilth. You can have a hardened seed slot as well, and this hardening can also cause problems where the water cannot disappear. Doing a work with the ultra-shell tillage, then this is reduced completely. So That makes it quite interesting also when, if you work with a disc, for example. It reduces risk, and that's what it's all about. What we want to do here is to reduce risk. So if we look at the seed placement, that's another challenge here what we have. If we're working with a disc tool here, there is always a risk that we get it can be physical, not being able to do a perfect depth keeping. It can be, we can have a hairpinning problem, like you see here. There we have to either clear the path of the residue, or we cut through the residue, or we use a tine to seed with. So different ways to get around that problem. We have different soil conditions here: compaction, hard soils, wet soils, uneven fields. That are all things that come up different years, sometimes all of them in one year, depending on where we are and how the year looks like. And here it's very, very important that we look at the biopores of the soil, because those are the ones we have. When we move away from iron, we move to roots, and the roots are the ones who should do all the work of the iron before. So that's important to understand that. We'll come back to that again. Here you can also think about if we get compaction and so on, we can look at a subsoil sometimes, followed by a good root crop. So we can work with a cover crop and think about using a mix of cover crops. A mix does different jobs. If you have a part of the field where you have more nitrogen left after the previous crop, one type of cover crop will be stronger there. If you have another part where there's less nitrogen, another type of cover crop will take over and be strong there. So you maximize your biomass production by giving different types of plants the possibility to grow as strong as possible in different parts of the field. So that's important, and to maximize the roots as well in the soil. And this is also to understand, this is quite a cool thing that a Swedish study, they made x-rays of the soil to see what is the pore system like. And after a while they managed to also first to look at all the pores, but then also to see, okay, the biopores, I think it was the corners of biopores and so on were a bit rounded, and so they could extract what were the biopores of all the pores in the soil, so to say. So when we're working in the conventional tillage, we have quite a big pore mass and not so many biopores. Then we move over into a cultivation where we cultivate more. We increase the amount of earthworms in the soil, and therefore we can also increase this amount of biopores, and therefore decrease a little bit the tillage as such. So it's important that we understand the extra work, who is doing the extra work, so to say here. And when we move into a no-till solution, we need these guys and we need the roots here as well, because we don't have any possibility to use the steel to add pores. So we're reducing that, so we need to really focus on these two here. That's a very important understanding of what we have to deal with, so to say, and how to, because the biopores is the key, so to say, to the system. And like mentioned before, you can work with deep root crops that also helps with earthworms, alfalfa, oilseed rape, cover crops, and so on. So that's important. If you have really problematic soils, you can go in multiple year alfalfa. Alfalfa tend to be better the longer you leave it, so to say, so that's important to keep in mind. But then you have so much roots in the system, so it's a good start, so to say. And one thing that gets more important the less we do is drainage. Because the drainage, that's the key, so to say, for these biopores to be created. we mentioned before that earthworms could not work very well in wet soils. So they need also oxygen-rich soils and so on. And so here, this is a very key not to save on this part here if you want to succeed well in building up maximum root mass. So also one thing we spoke about here, Martin will invest in drainage plow and so on now, and to really do more of the drainage, because this is such a key to manage the whole system, so to say. We do get a better macropore system in the no-till after a while, but it's also more sensitive because we don't do any repairs to it with any tillage usually. So that's important to keep in mind. So if we look at compactions, that's really, it's also connected to the drainage as well. Tires, don't save there, keep low pressure. I really like those things I've been following for a long time, from having been developed in small workshops by people. Now they are starting to get possible to order with your tractor. That's a very positive thing with a variable inflation rate. So I think that will help us a lot. There are a lot of new tire developments that enables us to reduce the tire pressure as well, which is really, really nice. So many positive things are happening in the tire side as well. You can look at the CTF solution, controlled traffic farming. What we do see is that, like I said before, don't be religious about something. And what started as a CTF, where it was completely forbidden to drive outside the lanes. Now we see more and more a CTF light, where you to your heavier traffic in lanes, but the rest of the traffic where you don't think about this lane, so to say. So many times, don't be religious. Take the best of each different thing so you can use it for yourself. That's important. Work very much with earthworms. Count the earthworms. Follow the development. Many times you will not see the development on a daily basis, but sometimes you can, if you start to count your earthworms, you can follow it, and that's kind of a nice thing. They are, see them as your signal how well you're doing in your no-till and your reduction of the tillage, because this is a very, very good soil health signal. So make a standardized test. Take one shovel and count there, and do the same thing in different fields and over the years a little bit, and to see, because that's very high motivation to see how that increases. So I think that's always interesting. Another thing to think about is to loosen but not mix in a strict no-till system, because here much about the rules is about to keep continuous cover of the soil, and then you're building up your mulch layer here, with a lot of high organic content up here. Once you establish this layer, you do not want to mix up this soil anymore. So keep that in mind. This is also one of the key bring-alongs to, once created, don't mess with that layer. That's because that is what, so to say, is the base for your success in the no-till, this layer here. So keep this one in mind. And you can, if you have problems with compactions, you can do non-mixing, loosening, subsoiling if you should need it. You can use points like that are not bringing up any soil. That's possible also. So, but the main thing is maintain your layer up there, and that's why I said it's also not problematic with a ultra-shallow tillage, because that layer is maintained. It's not mixed up. So good to keep in mind. We can have hard ground as well. Here, many times use insurance a roller. It can help you to get seed to soil contact. And to also slugs, because take away on hard soils, you also get more clods, and the clods are liked by slugs, so you reduce those as well. Sometimes you have stones that are freezing up. Here you press them down again to take down that risk. So, roller, cheap insurance basically. If we have uneven fields, which happens now and then, we have a wet year, or we have to combine. It's always we have to get the everything harvested. Use a shallow cultivation that has quite high intensity that can do your leveling, but do not mix completely your layers. So that's a possibility as well. The good thing here, you can also distribute the residues. You can distribute the chaff that you have from where you have the heads of the seeds and everything. So that's all reduced, that's all distributed as well when you do this. So, and we have weeds and pests, and this is quite interesting because when no-till started back in the days, it was heavily promoted by chemical companies because they said, here is a business possibility for us. Let us do no-till so we can sell more chemistry. So that's that was, I read about that from the 60s, 70s. They thought it was a huge business idea. When we see nowadays, though, it's important to understand that you need to be more interested in weeds. You need to see which ones are there, how do they work, what are their strengths and weaknesses. And when you change system, you change weeds, because you are no longer bringing up fresh soil all the time for the weeds, for example. You're not working with the weed seed bank anymore. So all these changes, your species will change. It's important to keep that in mind also. And usually you can have a grass weed decrease. But here is also, it's having worked a lot in England and in Germany, we spoke a little bit about this yesterday, that you have many advisors saying you have to do this and that and this and that to go fight the grass weeds. But I tell them, hey, it's how about rotation? No, not rotation. We must keep our winter grains all the time. No, but you must, if you want to fight weeds, rotation is a key. And it's also a key for a good, successful no-till system, to have a good rotation. So your rotation is helping to fight, because we break up the chains of resistance. You break up the chains of where they are strong, the weeds, and you can fight them in the spring with a spring crop, for example. Very efficient. So so many people try to resist the good old farming as much as they possibly can and try to work it around, but I still think this is the way to go. And if we look a little bit, try to think about here what we're doing. Okay, we're working with fungi, because the fungi should break down our residues as well. So try to reduce at least the fungicides you're using. Insecticides, only use them if you really need them. If you can avoid them, it's good, because they also kill off the good insects. So we are working now in a biology system where we also are using the insects. So reduction is good if we can do that. So and try not to use soil active ingredients, because you now have that very active mulch layer, and so we need to think a little bit different about these issues, so to say. Slugs, that is always a problem in almost most systems, and it can be a problem here as well. But make sure to spread your residues so they have nowhere to hide. That's quite important. And you can go chemically against them with lime. Slugs don't like lime. So if you lime your fields, keep that pH right, you reduce their possibilities of survival. And once again, if we want to step off the religious course, We can also see ultra-shell tillage here as well. 80% killing rate if we go at night. So that's a good thing to keep in mind. We can kill their eggs if we go on the frost to stir up a little bit there. So also possibilities to do little, but do a lot when you do that little. Some countries has big problems with cycles of field mice problems. And here we need to see, okay, we cannot take away the field mice, but how can we prevent them from exploding? And then it's a lot about helping these guys to catch them here, the birds. So we need to keep the residues short, the straw short, the stubble, and we need to also, if we can keep it close to the ground, that's one thing to keep in mind. We can put up places where they can sit and hunt, so that keeps down populations quite well also. So it's a lot about prevention, so to say. We can distribute the residues with a straw harrow. That's one way to do it. If the field mice is coming from a forest and so on, do a little bit of tillage there as well on the side to prevent them from entering into the fields efficiently. So a lot of prevention. Sometimes some countries is allowed to put chemical solutions against them as well, a mole plow with, but the prevention is usually the best way to go here as well. I spoke about nutrients. That's a very interesting part, how to work with that, and you need to understand some things here as well. And one thing that, why do we very often put down fertilizer with the no-till? It is because we have the immobilization of nitrogen. And this happens, it takes 4 to 8 weeks that the residues are being broken down. And then during that time, the residues are taking a lot of that nitrogen to them for the breakdown process, and they also steal oxygen. So therefore we have a little bit, we can see that the plant growth is stalling. It's getting very much slower during that time. With our fertilizer added, we, so to say, jump over this 4 to 8 weeks. So we give an instant go for the plants here. So that's important to keep in mind why this happens. And depending on a little bit what type of crop we have, it's depending on the speed as well. The rate of breakdown, where we can see different crops has a different speed of breakdown here. So so it's also depending on where we're going on after. And to build up this layer here, the top layer, this is organic matter. Organic matter is built up by adding nitrogen, so it has a cost. It's not for free. So we need to add some nitrogen to build up this organic matter as well. So keep that in mind. And that's also part of the transition to get this level going up there. So why it can be more unstable in transition, but if we add the nitrogen, so we have sufficient to build this up as well, it will, of course, increase the speed also of transition. Then we have, it's quite interesting also think about, okay, we have this mulch layer now on top here. How should we fertilize? If we put fertilize on top of this mulch layer, then we have a high activity there, but we actually should not fertilize the mulch layer. We should fertilize the roots. That is, so we should in a way go below. So this type of solutions would actually be quite interesting if we start to think about how to do it in a better way, so to say, for the roots. We can also, of course, do with the sprayer to put on the top, so to say, but to get the bigger amounts, I think the other solutions are quite interesting to consider looking at the biology of the soil once we have the mulch layer. Then we have a little bit of wet years. It's also a challenge as well. The thing is, we should always try to, the best drilling is always when it's a little bit dried up. Then we get the fine tilth, we have a decent result. That's important to keep in mind. So, and not only the soil, but also the residues are more problematic when they are moist. So they get more difficult to handle. Try always to seed into moisture, but go shallow. This is a big challenge in wet years to find this and to wait for it sometimes, and you don't know when it will come and so on. Big thing here we spoke about before against wet years is to have a very good drainage. Make sure it's working, make sure it's tight enough. What was drained maybe 100 years ago, 80 years ago, 60 years ago may not be sufficient width between the drainage pipes as today. We do get more heavier rains, we get more rain sometimes, and therefore may have to look at the distance also between the drainage. Cover crops can help us to reduce the amount of water in the horizon if we have too much. So that's also one way. A tine drill helps us to get rid of a little bit as well, because we also heat up the soil a little bit more there. So there are ways of working around it, but it's a challenge in no-till when we have really wet conditions. But I think to look at no-till, so to say, there are possibilities. If we do it the right way, we can really reduce, like we said before, the benefits, but they should not be in the focus when we select for going for no-till. But we can reduce establishment time. This is a nice thing. Capital cost and diesel. So there are many possibilities, and we can also make the soils more resilient. We have a climatic change where we may see more dry periods, where we see more wet periods. We can make more resilient soil like that. So done right and with very much attention, I think the no-till has certainly a very important role to play. Not for all farming, but for some farming, definitely. So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for having me. I'm very delighted to be visiting you these days to talk a little about what we have been doing on our farm for the last couple of years. My name is Martin. I'm 43 years old. And I'm from the south of Sweden. I will talk to you a little bit about what we've been up to. So this is what we're going to talk about for the next almost an hour, and I hope you stay with me for the whole time. What we've been doing up till 2016, and what we've been trying to find out since then, and what we're heading towards in the future. So this is our farm. It's a family farm. It's been in our family since the year of 1742. We've been growing crops since the start. We had some milking cows on our farm until the 1950s. And then we had some beef production still into the 1960s. And since then, it's been all about arable farming and growing crops. So I'm the ninth generation of farmers on our farm. And today we manage about 440 hectares of arable land. So this is where our farm is. It's very close to Denmark, in the very southwest of Sweden. I have only 10 kilometers to the city of Helsingborg, and then it's just a 20-minute ferry to Denmark. Our soils are either loamy sand or sandy loam, so it's between 5 and 22% clay. And just to give you a little bit of a hint of what we can manage on our farm, the 5-year average yields is about 8.5 tons of wheat, 5.8 tons of spring oats, 6.3 tons of spring barley, and about 3.8 tons of winter oilseed rape. So that's the average yield. So up until 2016, we were a pretty conventional farm. We managed about 650 hectares. We grew winter wheat, spring oats, spring barley, winter oilseed rape. We had some sugar beets. We also had a grass seed production with red fesk. We had a small amount of spinach, parsley, and also some carrots. It was me, my father, and we had one full-time employee, and we also had some help from our neighbors during the harvest. And I took over the management of the farm in 2017, and up until then, we thought, what are we struggling about? Where are we going? And the big problem up to 2016 was that we had a problem with a low profit operation. So every year we tried to cut costs to be more efficient. And we also felt the impact of the climate change. Longer periods of rain and longer periods of drought. And we have some scientific results showing us that this was correct. This is one very visible study of that. It's getting warmer. So we'll see what happens in the future. And we also had 2 small children. I didn't want to work all the time. I wanted to be with my family as well. And I also had my father who is getting older, and his capacity of work is reduced as well. And I wanted to be a good steward of the soil as well. So how do I manage these problems going forward? And thinking back, every time we got a new tractor, it had some more horsepowers. And with more horsepowers, we can get even bigger machines and bigger tools. And with bigger tools, we can choose, and bigger tractors, we can choose when we want to go on the soil. It's not the soil that tells us today is not the right day. If we wanted to, we could just go. And I also see the soil organic matter decreasing on our soils. And every year we get new varieties of our crops with 2 or 3% higher yields, but our yields wasn't improving with 1 or 2 or 3%. We had the same yields. That, in my opinion, that means that I'm getting 2 to 3% less or worse as a farmer each year if my yields don't improve in the same tempo as the varieties get better. So why is that? I felt when I was about to take over the plow, or over the operation, that I was in a conventional treadmill. What am I going to do for about 30 years on the farm? Am I going to plow, cultivate, seed and harvest for 30 years? And where will we be in 30 years if I do this the same way we have been doing it for some time? So is there any other way to go forward? So we had an opportunity to visit some other farmers in other countries. Especially these 3 has inspired me a lot we went to visit Tony Reynolds in Great Britain, and we went to visit Sarah Singla in France, and also Soren Ilse in Denmark. These are all influencers in thinking in new ways, and what they've all been doing is thinking outside the box and trying to find some new ways to go forward. And in some cases, they had worse conditions than we had, so we thought, if they can, why shouldn't we? And also, we can try to listen to other people that has been thinking a lot during their years. This is one of them. And three quotes that stay with me all the time are these: we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So if I want a different result, I have to do something different. And in the same genre, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So if I want a different result, I have to do something different. I can not just go home and do the same and expect it to change. And this helps a lot. Stay away from negative people. They have a problem for every solution. So think positive going forward. So now my motto on our farm is, I wish to manage the soil in such a way that it will be possible to grow healthy crops here for many generations to come. And doing so, we have three foundations to build these ideas around. Food production is number one. That's the basic idea of being a farmer, to produce food. I also want to improve the soil health on my farm as much as possible. And I want to safeguard the environment and impact the climate in as much positive way as I can and as little as negative way as I can. And the system for us going forward that combined these three in the best way was the conservation agriculture. So this, you probably know this already, but just a quick briefing. Conservation agriculture is about three pillars. So it's about diversity in crop rotation, living roots all year round, and minimum disturbance of the soil. And these principles are the same all over the world, but the implementation of these principles are very local and has to be adjusted by our local conditions, our crop rotation, soil health, etc. And that's the tricky part. So the adaptation on this system on our farm has been, from the start in 2016, we sold, we had a Väderstad Spirit 6-meter machine. We sold it, and we also sold an NZ aggressive tine harrow. We sold a plow. We sold a horse tiger cultivator. And instead we bought a 3-year-old SeedHawk, and we bought a straw harrow as well. We had a Väderstad carrier since before. We kept it, and we changed the discs to cross-cut the discs instead to be able to go very shallow when needed. Two or 3 weeks ago, I was in Tallinn on a conference, and I listened to this guy, Tom Robinson, a farmer from Australia, and he said, "Do less harm," and that sums up the way we're thinking very good, because it's all about highest possible yield, and then the soil health determines every decision that we want. We want to keep getting the best yield we can, but with as little negative impact as possible. So I don't want to go into a system where I throw away the chemicals or throw away the nitrogen. I want all the tools in the toolbox. I can go mechanical or I can go synthetical. And that provides with optimal choices for every decision. And it also improves sustainable food production going forward. So these 3 pillars on our farm is implemented in this way. With diversity in crop rotation, we try to find a balance between autumn-seeded and spring-seeded crops. We grow crops from different families, and we never see the same variety 2 years in a row. And this is the number one factor of being successful in this system, I think. It's all about crop rotation. And when you succeed with it, it minimizes the risk of and the amount of weeds, and we can nurture the good insects and harm the bad insects in a natural way, and the fungi will also be in a more balanced way going forward. So now we're in a 7-year crop rotation on our farm. If we begin in year 1, we seed spring barley in April, and we also interseed grass seed at the same time. So the first year in August we harvest the spring barley, and then the tall fesk and the grass seed will grow back, and we will harvest it the year 2. Remove the straw from the field to let it grow back the second year as well. So in the 3rd year of our crop rotation, we also harvest the grass seed. We remove the straw again to be able to seed oilseed rape directly into the field. And so far we've been doing this with our SeedHawk, 25 centimeter row spacing, and moving to seed the oilseed rape in between the rows with grass seed. And that provides us with a very good ground coverage, and where there's some old grass seed stubble, there will not be any place for weeds. So when this is successful, we can reduce the amount of weed treatment a lot. And we'll also, when we can, we try to use companion crops with our oilseed rape, and that means that we mix the oilseed with some other varieties. In this case, it's buckwheat, Alexandrine clover, and blue lupin. It's a bit tricky because it's different sizes. So if we mix a lot in our seeder, maybe in one end of the field there will be a good rapeseed production, and then in the other there will be blue lupins. So we've only adding a little amount at a time, but with more bins or more hoppers on our seeder, this will be even easier in the future. And the companion crops grows with the rapeseed all autumn. And it helps in a lot of ways because it feeds the mycorrhiza. The rapeseed plant don't function with the mycorrhiza. And it also helps to pick up nutrients from the air and from the soil that the rapeseed plant can't. And it's also a big bonus for the pollinators. So this picture is from a bee in mid-October. And this was the first time that we had pollinators all over the field all October out. So that was a great visual effect as well. All these companion crops are very sensitive to winter, so when we get -1 degrees, they all freeze away, and then in the spring, they're gone. And this is another way. In 2024, we tried one part of the field with rapeseed and Alexandrine clover, and one part with rapeseed and buckwheat. And the clover is the easiest one because it's the same size as the rapeseed. So they're very easy to mix in larger quantities as well. The problem with this companion crops is that we can't use any herbicides until late autumn or even early spring in the best cases. So if there's a lot of weeds after seeding, maybe we'll have to go with chemicals and terminate the companion crops early. So no herbicides early autumn. Then after the oilseed rape, we come in with winter wheat. And after the winter wheat, we always seed cover crops. And this is one way of seeding them. I will come back to this later, but interseeding cover crops into the wheat in the spring. After the winter wheat, we come in with spring oats. There's a lot of earthworms in our fields nowadays, so this is the common visual effects while seeding in the spring. And after the spring oats, we come in with winter wheat again, and this is what it can look like when we jump between lines. We save the seeding lines and then move it to seed the next crop in between the old stubble lines. So this is winter wheat in between spring oat stubble. So the living roots all year round is another goal, and that's for us, the goal is to have 100% of our fields covered and green in the autumn. And that means all the fields that are not seeded in the autumn should be seeded with cover crops after harvest. And number 3, minimum disturbance for us, it's straw harrow as soon as possible after harvest. And it should be, the best case is when the straw harrow is chasing the combine. So the sooner the better, because even if we harvest wheat at 12% moist, it's very dry, but then in the surface there are still some small frogs jumping around, and it's still moist enough to get the weeds to germinate if we go over with the straw harrow directly. If I wait for 2 or 3 days, it will be completely dry and the weeds won't germinate until we get some rain. And we also help spreading the crop residue, of course. And if we have some slug problems in our fields, this helps maybe a little bit against the slugs and against the eggs as well. And if the fields are seeded with cover crops, it's the same principle. We go as soon as possible after harvest. So, and what we've been seeing so far, we see an increase of biodiversity on our land. So we see a lot more earthworms if we dig. We see a lot of hares, pheasants, a lot of larks and lapwings, and also an increasing amount of beetles and spiders. And these are all the guys that we want in our fields. And they do no harm to us, just benefits. One of the earliest advantages in the system is a tolerance against heavy rain. So the infiltration capacity is one of the first that is improved. And then in the other way, we have a better capillarity effect. So the tolerance against dry periods is better than before. And when the soil is covered all year round, we also have a better tolerance against wind and water erosion. So our lighter soils, they don't blow away anymore, and the water stays where it lands. And that also helps a lot with the water problems. when we don't touch the soil, it also helps us reduce compaction. So we can go onto the fields with our machines more days than we could before. It's like going out on a lawn in the morning after 20 millimeters of rain. There's no problem, but if we go into the flower garden and the black soil, we get mud on our feet. Also, of course, it's very trendy today to collect the CO2 from the atmosphere, and this is a great benefit as well. We haven't lost any yield on our farm. The best yields for us has been in the last 7 years in all our crops. We've also had the worst yields in these years. 2018 was a catastrophic year for us. We had a drought for 3 months from May to August, ending up with between 25% to 50% in yield. So there's no quick fix to this problem, and we can't manage 3 months of drought, but we can manage a few weeks more than we could before. So the resilience in the system is still improving. Of course, even reduced labor costs, less hours in the fields because of removing the heavy tillage machines, and reduced use of fuel, chemicals, and fertilizers. This is not an uncommon sight on our farm. Even a spider can make its web on the top of the fuel tank because we don't fill it up so often. And as I showed you before, when we managed, for example, rapeseed or oilseed rape, after grass seed, there's less weeds to manage in the system. And a good cover crop, that's a nutrient bank. So if we have a cover crop like this, we can reduce the nitrogen appliance on the spring crops with about 20 to 50 kilos of N per hectare, with the same result. So that's a benefit as well. And of course, there's disadvantages as well with the system. And the big transformation has to be in between your ears, because it's a totally different mindset and looking at the crops and the fields in another way. If you want your neighbors to admire you and speak well about your crops, this is not the way for you. They might even think you're crazy at first. But the important thing about this is not looking at your fields from driving by them. Go into the fields and look in your fields, because there's a lot of stubble, but in the stubble there's also new rows growing. So that's a big difference. We also have less chances to make things right, so it's all about timing and planning. Every decision and every impact we do with seeder or a combine or a straw harrow, everything is connected. So you have to think about all the crop rotation in every moment, because if we just stop with the combine, we will have a lot of straw to handle for a lot of years to come. So we have to manage the straw and thinking about seeding the next crop while sitting on the combine, for example. There's no blueprint. The way I do things in my farm, my neighbor can adapt them, but he has to be open to change according to his conditions. So you have to do a lot of trials on your own. But most important in this, you have to believe in your system and you have to believe in yourself. If I work with something I don't believe in, I will not do a good job. So you have to, if someone tells me that their soil has to be plowed every year, they should probably still plow them every year until they're convinced otherwise, because they will not do this system in a good way. And also about testing new things, you shouldn't be testing them in the wrong conditions. So if I want to try out new rubber boots, I will not start by running a marathon. Then I will probably end up saying in rubber boots, it's not for me. And also about crops. Don't try a new crop in the worst fields, in the worst conditions, because it will not give you the good result that you need to evaluate. So it's all about trial and error and learning by doing. So we do a lot of trials on our farm because we don't have the science to back us up, and we don't have the advisory organizations to back us up. Much of this new learning and new systems are, the evolution is happening on the farms. So you have to speak to each other, try things out, and build knowledge on your own. This is a picture when we seed oilseed radish a few years ago. We've been seeding this part on the field, but we still haven't seeded this part. So when we manage to seed in between the rows, we do very little disturbance in the field. And this is the same effect. We harvested in the afternoon, and then in the evening we seeded. So when we go in between, the stubble standing is no problem for us. And we can have about 20 to 25 centimeters of stubble height left. And then there will be less stubble to chop with the combine and less stubble to handle with the seeder as well. So when this system functions and seeding in between, it's very nice. And this is 12 days later, so this is the oilseed radish growing in between the stubble rows. So the second year is probably the most important. So you have to believe in the system for at least 2 years to get this effect. And these are 3 very important tools on our farm. The most important one is the knife on the straw chopper on our combine. Because short and very good chopped straw is that's the key to getting a good seed placement afterwards. And of course, good tines on our straw harrow, and also fresh tines on our seeder, also important. But the knives, absolutely number 1. Here are 2 examples of the importance of fertilizer placement. In this case, this is a soil that is very sensitive to manganese deficiency. And while seeding winter wheat in September, we also interseeded or placed fertilizer with the seed. And this fertilizer, NS2124, it lowers the pH in the soil, and that helps against manganese. But it's very visible effect with placing nitrogen, and this is without. And this is also a visual effect of the nitrogen placement. This is a row where we had a plug with a. So we placed fertilizer, but we didn't place any seed. So we fertilized the weed fauna instead. But so we can see we have a lot of weeds in our soil. We have no crop to manage the seed, but we can also see in between the rows there are just as much weed seeds probably in the soil in between, but when we don't disturb the soil while seeding, we don't germinate any weeds. So the seed placement and the fertilizer placements, it's the key in this system. I do believe all soils need fertilizer, all soils need tillage. And if I don't do it with steel, I have to do it with roots instead. So that's why the cover crops are so important to this system. It will not work without cover crops. Many advantages with the cover crops, and I do believe we have to go with a multifunction variety instead of just one. And this is I learned in middle school about the food cycle, and that's the same logic with this actually, and with the crop rotation as well. Everything, if I put everything in it, it will help me get better, and it will help my soil improve as well. So two different strategies going into this. We can interseed the cover crops, or we've tried seeding after harvest as well. Interseeding cover crops, we go out in April, just before the wheat starts to grow, and we seed in between the lines. We choose varieties that stay close to the ground so they won't interfere with the combine. And then the idea is to have them to grow back after the combine. It can be tricky. This is 2021. We have some hop alfalfa, some white clover, and then a mix of 3 species as well. But one year is not like the other, so this is 2 different years with the same varieties. In 2020, we had moist all summer and very good results in very nice looking cover crops after harvest. And then the year after, we had 3 weeks of drought in the end of May. And the wheat roots took all the moist and the cover crops disappeared. So this is a very sensitive way of doing things. Easier for us has been seeding after harvest. And we go as soon as possible because we want to keep the moist. And the moist helps us to germinate the seeds. So every day counts, and you have to be open to change your varieties. On my farm, we use a variety that is the quickest to harvest, because that is not the best variety. I lose a couple of hundred of kilos per hectare, but I can seed my cover crops 1 or 2 or 5 days earlier than with another variety, and that makes a huge difference in the end of the autumn. And then it's all about, we have to use multi-pieces mixtures, and which mixtures I use is about which seeds can I get, what's the price this year, and what's the size of the seeds as well. Can I mix them together? And also the result can also vary over the years. So this is 2 years, 17 and 18. 17 was a dry, wet year, or a wet and cold year, and 18 was a very dry year. And that's the big difference. If I want to change from steel to biology, these cover crops is like helping the soil with a plow. And this bad example is like trying to deep cultivate with a straw harrow. So we need good cover crops. And these are just 3 examples of the varieties we've been using the last couple of years. So we're trying new mixes every year to help us improve always. So just a quick going through about one of the trials we've been doing. We've been comparing the SeedHawk with a horse avatar. to compare the tine with the disc on our farm and our conditions. So we seeded in 2023 40 hectares of spring oats, half the field with the tine and half the field with the disc. And this is after emergence. Looks good with both machines. And this is in 18th of July. You can still see the wider row spacing of 25 centimeters with the SeedHawk, and the Avatar has 16.7 centimeters. And this is just before harvest. A SeedHawk on your left and the horse Avatar on the right. We thought it looked the same, but then when we looked at the yield map, I was very confused, because this is the part where we divided the field, and this part, the upper part, is with the SeedHawk, and the lower part is with the disc. And also in the other end of the field, we did the same. We divided, and we seeded with SeedHawk on this part, and with the disc on the left part. And there was a 1 to 1.5 ton difference in yield between the two machines on this particular year. So we thought this one time is no results, so we have to try to do this again. So new trials in 2024 on spring oats and in spring barley. And we also tried to do with 4 different seed beds preparations, just to try the difference between the two machines. So we glyphosated the field. We went with the tine cultivator, 6 centimeters deep and 10 centimeters deep. And then we had one part with cross-cut discs with 3 centimeters, and then one plot was no-till. Seeded with both machines. And this part is the cultivated part, seeding with SeedHawk. And then we looked at the mapping satellite photos. This part is winter wheat, so that's not part of the trial, but here you can see we went with about 200 meters long and 36 meters wide strips, with direct drilling, with carrier, with cultivation on 60 centimeters and cultivation with 10 centimeters. And then we looked at the biomass per square meter. We looked at the number of tillers. We also looked at the biomass coverage ratio on the field, canopeo, and the weeds. And the most important, the most interesting in these cases is the weed emergence and the number of weeds, because we see when we add some cultivation, the number of weeds increase a lot in both the SeedHawk system and with the horse system. So it helps us a lot against the weed population to go no-till, if we can. And then we yield mapped it as well, and we came to no conclusion whatsoever. There was no significant results in this. There was a tendency from the combine that the no-till is better with the SeedHawk, and the cultivated part is better with the disc. And that makes sense, really, because we help the disc a lot with cultivation, and the SeedHawk do some cultivation on its own. We also tried it with oats. 4 fields with spring oats. 2 of them were seeded with a SeedHawk. This was a SeedHawk seeded field, the upper one, and the left part of the big field was SeedHawk seeded as well. And also in this case, there was no significant differences. So compared to the year before with big differences, this gave us nothing really. And that just tells us that each year is different. But to summarize these 2 years, in our conditions, we cannot on my farm have 2 machines, so we had to sell one of them and stick with one of them. And we are sticking with the SeedHawk in my case because it's, in my conditions, it's a more flexible machine for a bigger part of my crops. So there are always disadvantages and advantages with each machine. So you have to see what your conditions are. And if we had a bigger weed problem like black rust on my farm, I would probably have gone with a disc machine instead. So they both function. So, and going forward, we're trying this year we've changed the tine on our SeedHawk, so we have the twin wing tine instead, just to get a band of seed instead of just one row. So to narrow the row spacing a bit. Before we changed, we started seeding, so this is one field with both systems, so one row or a band, or 2 rows actually. But when we look at the field today, it's a band of seeds. So we think this could be a way forward for us. We're also going to try to establish the oilseed rape with a heavy stealth going forward, and that's just 22 centimeters down every 50 centimeters. And then placing the seed and placing slug pellets and placing fertilizer. And this helps us to, once in a crop rotation, go a little bit deeper without mixing the whole soil. And we're also investing in a new plow on our farm, but it's just one tile plow. It's for drainage system, and I think this is the most important thing to have functioning on your farm, regardless of the system. So we're going to try to help the soils improve with drainage, as well as it's a big part of going forward. So in summary, we look at our farm and on our crops and our soils in a very different way now than we did before. And it's all about the system instead of just crops. And I do think our goal is to look at it this way, that we haven't inherited the soil from our parents. I'm just borrowing it from our children and their children and so on. So thank you.
So we start, this is a little bit more, not about hardware on the SeedHawk, but more about the software, the agronomy, going through that a little bit of basics. What do we need to do? We need to clear a seed slot so that it's clear of residues and some way. And we need to maintain a good seed depth, and we need to close that as well. So those are the basics we need to tend to when we do the seeding. And if we look at SeedHawk as a system, it is we are taking a little bit from the really minimum so disc drill, more or less what we do as little as possible, and we take a little bit of tillage and we make a micro strip tillage. So that's what we're actually doing. So it is a certain amount, a very small amount of tillage there. This picture I took back in Spain. I did sell a lot of the SeedHawks in Spain. They have a very big problems with dry weather there, and there they are extremely interested in direct drilling technologies. But what we did see there a lot was it was very nice emergence always. It was an extremely strong emergence from the SeedHawk. So that's one of the big benefits there. And how did it develop? It's quite, when you start to look at it, it's quite clear actually. It came from the air seeders back in the days. But we all know the air seeders had a big problem was when we have tracks or unevenness, whatever, they did not follow anything like that. They could only follow upwards. As they continued to be developed, they received a wheel in the back so they could follow better upwards in a way. So that improved them quite a bit. SeedHawk is, instead of having just a one-way solution going, it has the hydraulic can go both ways, up and down. So that's a little bit the history. If we look in Canada, how that was coming before the SeedHawk. And due to that, we have a system that can now work 40 centimeters or 20 centimeters in each direction, more or less. And that gives us possibility here. It's also the customer, he had been stuck with the tractor, but said, I'll go through. And then we went back after a while to look at the emergence, and you can really see it followed the wheel tracks as well. Quite impressive. And we can put 150 kilos on each of the on each row. It's not that much, you may think, and that's certainly true. And we don't need that much because this is angled, and this means it's soil searching. It wants to go in the soil. So that reduces our need of weight, and that also, of course, reduces the draw force requirement for the machine as well, which is positive as well also. And it goes into everything, just symbolized here a little bit. It also shows a little bit the disadvantage if we have some rocks. It also puts it up, but it also shows it enters in everything. So that's impressing with this machine also. It does a certain amount of seedbed preparation also. And if we look at the system as such, we have basically two different tools. The one here, that is more or less a cultivated tine that is not mixing. It goes in and really pulls through. It takes away the bigger clods to the sides here, as you can see. And then afterwards, we have a tine that is working more like a it works more like this, so it carves out a little bit out of the side wall, so to say, where we place the seed afterwards. It's a shelf on the side wall, more or less. And by going that direction, it does a complete different job. So it really mills down very fine tilth. And that's important to understand the differences between these two functions here. We have the different tines of the SeedHawk. So therefore it's also important to look at, if you want to have a one tine or two tine system for direct drill, you have to, if you have only one tine, you have to compromise somewhere. So here we don't have to compromise, which is quite a big thing. And if we look, we get fine tilth. And fine tilth, those who knows me, that's one thing that I always speak about. It's important to get our germination going, because when we have a good germination, the rate, we can lower the seed rate. That's quite a big thing. So we get more of the seeds we're putting out there, and they get going faster, and it's we also, with this fine tilth, it's easier to get seed soil around the seed as well. So that's quite important. And one thing that, since we are working with the tine as well, one benefit is the movement of this long tine here. That one always runs in cultivated soil. It's soft. And this means when we put pressure on that, it runs quite soft also. So when I have a depth keeping wheel that runs on hard soil that is not cultivated, it will bounce, it will give you a lot of micro movements. And those are taken away by the SeedHawk, these micro movements. So that's a positive aspect of this type of construction. And this is displayed in very even germination most of the time. So even fields, that's a very important part of it. One thing that is also shown very well is when we're working with small seeds. And here the tine is excellent because it makes the, once again, the fine tilth. So we do get, even if we go very, very shallow, we always have enough soil to cover the seed and to get this germination going. That's so that's beautiful germination usually with the small seeds as well. And we speak sometimes about forced separation here, and that's here is between the seed and the fertilizer, because the second tine coming up here, that really forces soil always over the fertilizer. So we are sure that there can never be a contact between the two of those here. It's impossible. Here it's very much about having a distance that is close enough to have a fast contact, far away to be safe. And the fast contact, I looked a little bit how fast does actually a root grow. And if we look in optimal conditions, 20 degrees in the soil, a root can grow 2 to 3 centimeters in 24 hours. So this means in optimal conditions, you are roughly 1.5 days from the seed germination until it comes to the fertilizer depot. If we look at less optimal condition on a spring when it may not get that warm, let's say you can double that. But that's about the time range we're speaking about for the seed to get to the fertilizer, roughly. So just to have that idea a little bit. And if you're working with big amount of product, then you do want to separate them, because that's simply, otherwise you will have a competition with the moisture as well, and that can steal time from germination also. You can also risk otherwise that you may not put the fertilizer optimal, so to say. There may be air and so on, so you may not get the perfect germination. And with the SeedHawk, you saw from Martin what he's testing now. You can definitely have the standard way of placing seed. We have 25 centimeters between the rows. There's also now with the new machine, you can also place a starter fertilizer with the seed if you would like. If you don't feel that this 38 millimeters, if that poses a little bit of problem. If you're low on phosphorus, for example here, then you can put that. You may, that's quite interesting too, to experiment a little bit with calcium high fertilizers you may want to put with the seed to increase effect as well. There can be one interesting application to that. Then what Martin is testing here, the twin wing, where we actually do get a closer row distance. Instead of 25, we are now down on 170 millimeters. So which really gets quite different rows instead. And here, 76 millimeters, but like Martin said, after a while, that gets more into a band because that closes very, very quick. So that will not remain visible for a long time. You can also, if you have a very good fertilizer status in your soil, then you can, for autumn, for example, you can place both of the knives you can use for seed. So then you can also reduce quite a bit of your distance there as well. So you're down to 21 centimeters roughly between the rows then instead. So there are possibilities you can do fairly easy with the machine as well. So you're not stuck into one solution there. And once the seed is in the ground, we get a quite a nice effect. By working with tines, we leave the walls here open, and that gives us a good access to moisture through capillarity. So the shelf we put the seed on, it has direct access to moisture right away. So that's quite important to keep in mind. You can see quite visible here. Untouched soil, the seed right on top of there, and good consolidated soil on top here also. And the roots afterwards can choose to go into the loosened or into the more steady soil as well. So there's always the possibility there. That makes it also quite interesting. So I think we have a very nice microclimate here for the roots to work. And if we look at, this gives us moisture access from below. We also get the fine tilth here, consolidated well, and the shape of this furrow allows also a certain amount of moisture going down towards the seed and the fertilizer, allowing a quick dissolving of the fertilizer and quick germination of the seed. And we can also gather snow, moisture, and so on through the stubble. And if rain comes, it also gathers into the furrow. And once again, coming back to the forced separation, we not only separate the fertilizer and seed, we also separate the residue and the seed as well. And this is quite important because this ensures that we can never have a hairpinning problem. So that's a big thing. By also having residue-free where the fertilizer dissolving is going faster. So it's always clean, so to say. So that's important to keep in mind. We have no chaff. So the everything that remains except for the normal residues, that is chaff, and the chaff is allelopathic. That has effect on the germination of the coming crop. That's cleared out of the way, so it's clean out of that also. The residues that we pull out of here, we place there. So we have more residues on the other places that will increase the insulation effect where we don't, where we are not working, so to say, so which is good. That keeps the moisture better in those places also. So plenty of ways working here as well. And residues with the seed, it's usually not a good thing. It can also be a problem a bit later if you mix it too much with the plant germination as well. Looking at a little bit the function way when we have tilled, it's just like strip till and so on. We spoke about micro strip tillage, and so we are warming up faster. That is a big thing, and that changes a lot of the conditions. So so basically work in this little row, it is like a usual tillage. So that's one of the reasons we are adding on to the speed of germination as well there. So and we can see that in Denmark we saw some trials there showing that risk of yield losses in here. They recommended a shallow cultivation. Here we have a shallow cultivation. We don't need to do that extra, so to say. And temperature is important here. So you can see a little bit the different, how many days it takes at different temperatures for things to get going. And this is just a temperate table where you can see warm up here and cool down here, and everything is getting going faster if we are working with higher temperatures. So it is very, very important how things are working to increase the temperature. And we also increase the speed of the nitrogen uptake. So that's also, if we look, that's time of the weeks that it takes to get going. And then you have up there, you have the soil temperature. So you can basically see with the 20 degrees, it takes 1 week. But if we have 5 degrees, it takes a lot longer. So that's also effect on how you will see the fertilizer working for your plant there. And we can see the uptake of phosphorus as well. So a lot of things works with temperature, basically. So warmer means that we have a better use of the phosphorus as well. So many effects that are positive. And we can also see, like any tillage, there is a certain boost of the mineralization. We are doing a little bit of burning of the organic matter of the soil, so to say. That gives a little bit of boost also for your plants, certainly. New for the SeedHawk now also is the front disc. So the front disc gives a little bit of the benefit of a disc also with a tine disc, so with a tine drill. So you can enter in basically everything. As you can see here, this was a mixture with different cover crops, including maize and sunflower, I don't know what, drilled into it without any problem at all. Up there it's more of a, that looks more of a standard up here type mixture, but it brings no problems. You can go into crops with quite a lot of green mass, live crops. You can also, if you go into when you drill oilseed rape into wheat stubble, for example, this will improve your results as well. So it simply cleans up the seed row a little bit better. In some conditions, you can even increase the speed slightly. We do not have too big hopes on that, but it's a little bit increase possible in some conditions. So, so there's many benefits of having a disc in combination here as well. And do go a little bit angled to the previous crop, especially when starting. If you go from a tighter row distance, then this is really important. Short stubble will make it easier for you. Go when it's a little bit dry, because you should be able to go without your shoes getting sticky. And the longer you work with your no-till, the less stickiness you will have in your soil, so you can go a bit earlier when the soil is getting better, so to say, in the shape. And drill into moisture. Don't look only at the depth, but look where do you have the moisture. Get down to that depth. That is a good thing to keep in mind. You will cultivate up a little bit moisture with the fertilized tine and so on. So that helps you there as well. And then there's always the question here, and I will not give you a really good answer to it either. How do you do when you're doubling the row distance? How do you do with your seed rate? And there are two schools here, and I just you have to choose your school. Some people do reduce it 20%. Others say they want to focus on the one stem and to have a good kernel development of that main stem of the wheat, and therefore maintain the seed rate. So that's a little bit up to you which school you believe in, and also, of course, your varieties and so on, where they are strong at. So, but that's good to keep in mind. There is a open discussion on this issue. And there is also, here we saw also trials on the spring barley that the in Denmark as well, there's been some needs of increase in seed rates when you do direct drilling. With the SeedHawk, since we are doing some tillage as well, we do not have to worry about that. We can keep the same seed rate and don't have to do any extra, so to say. So that saves a little bit of money to the micro strip till. We saw here what Martin was doing already to show that the drilling into between the rows, so to say, putting a covering crop between there also, very, very interesting, I think, and the possibility. And this is, of course, a benefit when you have a little bit wider rows. You can do things like this. Speed-wise, it is not a high-speed drill. It's not a rapid, and that's important to keep in mind. Here, you must see what your soil allows it to. 6-8 kilometers per hour is usually the optimal operational speed. So that's important to keep in mind. So I think it's time for lunch. Thank you very much.